5, 6, 7, 8. We are back from our season 2 intermission, is what we were
Yeah,
calling that.
cool.
Welcome, everybody. This is the Smart and Public podcast. I'm Katie Boyson,
And I'm Katie Dufficy.
and we are out of practice. How's it
And I am not Katie.
going? Okay. Well, we'll jump right in. Let's introduce who we have as our guest. We are so excited today to have Christine Choi on the pod. She is the partner and head of brand communications at M13. And most famously, I feel like, personally in my book, known for working with Sir Richard Branson to launch the Virgin Group's North American portfolio. She's done a million things other than that. Your work does not define you. But Christine, we are so excited to have you on the pod and talk about the most interesting woman in comms, people like to say.
People, you mean Allison Bailey.
Yes, yes. I like
She's
to quote
amazing.
her whenever I can. It makes me sound smart.
Oh my God, she's amazing. I first
Yeah.
have to start by saying I have an Australia story. I need to tell you my Australia story,
I
Katie.
love an Australian story. Please
Yeah,
share.
I have never been to Australia, and I have to blame Richard Branson for it. I had been planning this incredible Australia trip with my friend Judy, who had been at Shangri-La Hotels, and we planned this incredible tour with like a junket with like travel and music journalists from America. And
Oh,
I was
cool.
so excited to fly a seaplane for the first time and go to Tasmania and do all these crazy things. And then at the last minute, Richard decided that he was going to come to New York. So I had to
Richard.
cancel. I couldn't do anything. We did this Virgin Australia activation. It was going to be amazing. Anyway, they left without me. It didn't matter. They didn't care.
They didn't
And I
guess.
it didn't, they had the best time. I was so upset. I was so forlorn. I was crushed. And I was with Richard at this movie premiere, and it was a movie starring Bradley Cooper. So that was
I
the
mean,
that was the
it's not a bad consolation
that
prize.
was the consolation prize. I got to hang out with Bradley Cooper, and the CMO at the time, this amazing woman named Julie. She was a huge Bradley Cooper fan, and she said, "Christine, can we get a photo with him? Why do they always ask us, right? Why are they
Yeah,
always
that's
asking
true.
us? Why don't they just
Like
go
we're the
straight to
keepers
Bradley?"
of the photos. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I had to go to Brad. I was like, can we take a picture with you? I literally said it like that, and Julie was so excited, and Bradley was like, yeah, of course. He was such a nice guy. And we had one of our investment guys take the picture, and it was essentially a horizontal picture. Most of it was Bradley's face, and like he captured half of Julie's face and half of my face, and that was the photo. That was my keepsake.
Keeper.
That's what I got instead of Australia.
Oh, well,
That's
Christine, you should still, I mean, it's been a long time. Like, plan a trip. Come down. I'll host
I
you.
know. I think I'm gonna have to go with Katie in December. Katie and
Yeah,
Mhm.
Scotty.
good idea. Yeah, yeah.
It's a good gang to travel with, let me tell you. You are welcome
We call it
anytime.
PR Girl Summer. That's what we're calling it.
My God, I love that. Please
I,
invite me.
Christine, you have to send us the photo of you and Bradley Cooper and your friend Julie as well, because I feel like we've got to give the people what they want.
yeah. Yeah,
Let's
we
see
have
the
to
I
see
would
photo.
love.
the half face photo. We have to.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've kind of dived into like a great story to kick off, which gives people a little bit of a flavor of your life, I think. But do you want to just give us a little bit on kind of like your journey in comms, and for people who maybe don't know you or haven't come across you, like where have you been and where are you today from a comms perspective?
Sure. First of all, communications is not something I thought I was in. I mean, I'm curious how you both started too, because communications means so many things. And, I remember having a really awesome first conversation with Natalie Sportelli, who you probably know. She was like, are we in comms? Are we in marketing? What are we? What's your title? And, all of it is so like fungible. And I've always believed that communications is the infrastructure. It is the everything. It's the North Star from which everything flows, including marketing, right? Who
Mm.
needs a narrative? Who needs a strong, crisp, and real narrative that is authentic to the company and the employees and the founding and the origin story and all of that? It's sales, it's internal comms, it's the talent brand, it's the HR people, it's the employees, it's managers, it's everybody, and it's investors, it's everyone. And so I don't think I knew that I was in communications until someone gave me a title recently. But it's either whether it's brand communications, community
Mm.
building, whether it's marketing. I think it's the glue that kind of holds everything together. And when you're in a startup environment, a really like entrepreneurial environment, that's where you understand like how valuable and essential it is because you're building it from scratch.
Yeah.
You're encouraging your founder to say more about the why and the why now and the why her. And then you're hearing it from talent, you're hearing it from people around you. And when other people start mirroring what you're saying, then you're realizing, oh, this is a sticky narrative. This is a narrative that resonates with other people.
Yeah.
And that's when you realize, oh, I can actually raise money for this. I can actually get work on product market fit because I have talent who wants to help solve this really hard problem with me. And then you realize you have something. And so I bring up community because I think communications is so much about people, building those stakeholders that can be there with you. Otherwise, you can't be building a business alone. So to go back to the very beginning, I started out on the founding team of Teach for America. This
Mm.
was way back in the early 90s when it wasn't a household name. And then I moved on and I was on the founding team of KIP Foundation. And so I learned everything about brand and communications from Don Fisher. Don and Doris Fisher started The Gap, Banana Republic, and Old Navy. So I learned
Yeah.
so much about it from them. And one of the key lessons I learned from them is to not overreach, is to not make promises you can't keep, and it's to tell the story of where you are right now and not be too aspirational and visionary in a way that you lose people. You've got to keep them where they are, where you are. And then after that, I joined Virgin Group and I helped Virgin Group build out, as you said, Katie, build out the North American portfolio. And it was a time of incredible growth when there were just 12 of us in New York, and we helped launch Virgin America, Virgin Hotels, Virgin Voyages, and also his investment portfolio of tech startups. And so it was an incredible time, and I got to work with some exceptional people who are continuing to build and operate very impactful businesses today. And then it was at Virgin that I got to meet Carter and Courtney Ream, the founders of M13. And in 2019, Carter approached me and we got to talking about the VC firm that he was building. And it resonated with me because everyone came from an operator background. And
Mm.
so I thought this was the way I wanted to get into venture. I was less interested on the investing side. I was way more interested in finding incredible visionary founders who were going to be building technology that would transform the way we work and live and interact, and also just build and help them build responsibly. So I've been there I just celebrated I'm in my sixth year, celebrated my sixth
Nice.
anniversary at M13. Yeah.
Wow, what a career. It's pretty amazing, Christine, when you lay it all out like that. I'm sure you feel that way too when
Yeah,
you
but I bet you have the same thing. I mean, you don't realize what you have until you look back and you think, whoa, I can now connect the dots and I can see
Mm.
the influences of certain key people and moments that continue to inform how you operate and how you respond to people and also crises and issues and all those things.
Mm.
I'm sure you guys both have experiences like that.
It's funny when you connect the dots from like a resume perspective, because I also think about it with community in that sense of like, I like to think of all of the people that I've met, the experiences that I've had, because I feel like a person can have a great resume, but it's the people that will come out of that resume and go to bat for you or like,
Mm.
have your back with something that I think is the thing that it doesn't surprise me. I think it's just super flattering, as you go through your career and you've got people that are in your corner and you do that the same for others too.
Yeah.
Mm.
Is there a story about both of your careers that your audience hasn't heard yet? I'd be curious to hear
Ooh.
it.
I mean, I'm a bit of an open book, Christine, but I don't know. I think one thing about my career that I did that I thought was going to be a huge misstep, and I don't know if I've talked about it on this pod before, or if maybe just Duffy and I talk about it sometimes in just relations to other things that we kind of are planning and speaking about. But um, one of the big things that I did in a career was took a demotion and a role change into a different department to move to another country. And so I think, people think about when I moved to Australia, people think, oh, she transferred with Salesforce. And there's this idea that like I moved with the PR team. But I think the big experience and the thing that I'm really proud of is that I just personally wanted to move. And so I made it happen by moving into the customer marketing team, to going down a level and then figuring it out from there. And it didn't impact negatively my career at all. And it really was character building. And I ate a big piece of humble pie to do it, probably at a point in my ego where I thought I would never have to do that. And I just learned a lot of lessons. I think I'm really proud of doing that and going through that, and still, proving to myself that I think I lost the desire for a job title when that happened, because I figured out that I could, it didn't need it.
I mean, think about all the adventures and learning you had. Besides the humble pie, who needs a title, right? I
Mm.
don't remember half the titles I've had. It doesn't really matter. It's a sum of all of our life and work experiences, and also taking
Mhm.
risks and getting paid for it. Like I mean, all of that is amazing. What
Yeah.
about you, Katie? The other
Yeah,
Katie?
I don't know. The story that I like to tell people, but I feel like I maybe talked about it at the very beginning of the podcast. But um, I think my stories from my career are the things that stick with me are when leaders did things that I didn't expect them to do in support of me, or who kind of pushed me where I really probably wasn't going to push myself. And I try and remember that, at the moment I'm an individual contributor, but for a long time I was a leader, and I kind of tried to remember the times that people did that. But the one that stands out for me is when we had a Dreamforce at Salesforce's big user conference, and I was fairly junior at that point and had kind of come over and brought some Australian media over, and we had a really big interview with a journalist and George who was at Salesforce at the time, one of our really senior leaders. And I was quite nervous and kind of getting ready to like prep him, and my manager at the time was like, I assumed she would do the prep, but I was kind of doing all the back work. And she was like, "Oh no, like this is your interview. Like you're gonna prep him. Like that's on you. Like you've got this." So I was like, "Okay," like I'm, super nervous, ready to go, had all my notes ready, and we went into the room, and I was ready to be like, "Okay, this is the journalist. Like this is what you're gonna focus on." And George was like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like I've got that. That's fine. I want to know about you." And he was like, "Tell me about you. Like, what's your journey? Like, why Salesforce? Like, what do you want to be? Where do you want to end up?" And it was just this like, and we had like maybe 10 minutes, but he chose that 10 minutes to learn about me. And
Mhm.
that has stuck with me for a long time, that is someone who didn't need to do that. We could have just done the interview. Like, I was just, the PR person from Australia who'd flown over. And it just stuck with me, and has stuck with me for a long time, that you can take, no matter who you are, you can take 10 minutes and learn about someone who's in the room with you, and ask them questions. So that's probably
Yeah,
one of my favorite memories.
I
And he
love
probably
that.
doesn't remember it at all, but I remember it deeply.
I mean, think about it. You're still talking about that story. What
And
an
that was
incredible example.
years ago. Like it was, yeah, but it made an impact for sure.
Wow. Wow.
Mm.
Well, Christine, in terms of, the impact that you're driving now too at your role at M13, like you work with founders and building out their messaging and their storytelling quite a bit. I know you have this kind of brand flywheel concept that you speak to quite often. Like, I find this really interesting. Like, can you just kind of walk through what that concept is and
Mm.
like how it's different from traditional PR approaches?
Yeah. The way we look at the media flywheel right now is it's two things. It's going to audiences where they are. Like think about it. First of all, our brains are broken because our attention is in so many different places. We
Mm.
have so many different channels now to be persuaded. And so the idea is this media flywheel gets set in motion by beginning the process of sharing your narrative, sharing your why, across either your website or a demo or social media or something. There's a nugget of truth somewhere, and then it starts to animate the rest of the flywheel. You can take that piece of content and apply it across the other channels in the flywheel. And I think what it speaks to is this kind of holistic approach to comms that early stage isn't a good place to do, because often they're the only ones that are able to do it. Or they may have a salesperson that happens to also enjoy writing white papers and putting case studies together. And so that person then does it and starts to activate the flywheel, which then has an impact on their talent brand, which also has an impact on their investor decks and so forth. And it begins the discipline of creating one crisp strategic narrative that becomes the infrastructure for communications. So we refer to it as the flywheel because it definitely needs to be put in motion in some way. And I think it's also about communication is not about pushing, right? It's about partnership, and it's about
Yeah.
activating the different people to be able to sing off that song sheet and to help tell your story. And that's ultimately the best expression of brand loyalty, right? It's when someone starts to engage with your content, starts to talk about you, obviously chooses you, and wants to work with you, and ultimately like loves what you're doing. So that in effect is the media flywheel. And I think what I try to do is we try to encourage them to think about the flywheel more so than particular metrics, because at that early stage, those metrics, the click-throughs, like
Yeah.
what impact does that actually have? It may give you some notional idea of like where your audiences are. Ultimately, you really want engagement, and that takes place over a long time horizon. Like I mean, obviously, like you need way more than a click-through to understand if a piece of content is really working and sticking for you.
Yeah. Are there mistakes that, founders make or the startups make when they're trying to activate the flywheel? Like, where does it get stuck? It becomes a fly trap instead of a flywheel, if you will.
Oh my God, I love that. I
Yeah,
love
I
that.
love that. Yeah.
The fly trap, I think, and I think I couldn't do any of this without Tanya and Marissa, who are my two PR consultants who work with me and are founders and also the partners. They often like to say that founders come to us thinking that they need to get coverage or place a story somewhere. And those verbs, that language doesn't work anymore. It's like, where did you hear this from? What
Yeah.
show did you watch to think that this is what you need? This isn't how the flywheel works. And so we try to use new language to introduce them to what content means. And often it starts with starting to post on LinkedIn. It's
Yeah.
not necessarily, I want to get in the Wall Street Journal. It's really, do you look like a zombie company? Are you active? Are you starting to post? Are you starting to get the word out there so that people know that you're building something and that you're doing something really exciting and interesting? So it could be as simple as that, but it starts to turn them on, and it gets them interested and engaged, and also gives them the confidence. Sometimes when they post something and we're commenting and we're engaging, they start to see that there's a lot of traction, and that gets them excited and they want to do more. I think it also encourages them to encourage the rest of their team. It's not just on the founder to
Right.
do this, to engage with the brand. It's up to the rest of the employees to also, we're all personal brands, and we're brand ambassadors. We did a conversation with Business Insider's Malia Russell the other day, and we do this really great 3-day boot camp for the rising stars across our portfolio so that they also feel like leaders and they get the same kind of introduction to communications that their founders do. And one of the things she said she had such great advice for the rising stars, but one of the things she said is, don't wait for you to be a founder to get your word out there, because
Yeah.
we look for experts. We look for niche experts everywhere. We're not just looking for founders. In fact, sometimes the founder origin story is a bit overplayed. We want something fresh and differentiated. And so please, like, keep posting, get out there and encourage your employees to post too.
I also think, as even from a founder or an employee perspective, when they're getting out there and they're talking about their brand, particularly right when they're getting started and they're growing, there's so many lessons to be learned that you can be talking about that doesn't need to be a secret. Like, failure and vulnerability is almost like the biggest like binding gel between building a community with your followers or just talking at them. So I love encouraging like founders and the companies that I work with to just, as you grow, share. I think that that's what people want to do and people want to learn from, and it just creates such a natural audience and rapport with whoever's listening.
Yeah. Katie, you may relate to this. Like when I was at Virgin Galactic and some of the other aerospace companies, I learned really quickly that they have a high tolerance for failure and they don't mind talking about failure. It's an open conversation. And I found it really refreshing because I thought, oh, I'm gonna have to know everything about engineering and about aerospace and all the components that make up a spaceship. But really, it's the process. It's bringing people along the journey and helping them understand that a flight test, you actually learn even more when there's an anomaly or when something breaks down or something has to stop and you get so much more data. You learn a lot from setbacks and failures. So, Katie, back to your point about like moving to Australia and eating humble pie, like learning lessons, like all those things are, I think I had to learn to accept and embrace the risk taking that happens in entrepreneurship and in life, obviously.
Mm.
And the stakes were tremendously high in aerospace and eVTOL, but I saw that they had a high tolerance for that, and it was such a learning experience for me. And Richard is like that too. Richard can't stop talking about his failures. The stories are just richer and more.
Mhm.
People care more about the failures than they know about the successes, right? So
Yeah.
tell us about the setbacks.
Davisi, you would have gone through that a little bit with Andrel as well, of like learning and kind of starting in a new space. You always talked about like
Oh,
what is
yeah,
a
I
dream of a
mean,
fire hydrant and
I don't know anything. Yeah, I didn't know anything about defense necessarily, but I think that's actually been somewhat of a benefit to me because I am an Australian who was not necessarily deeply engaged in defense. And part of the challenge for us here in this market is to kind of help educate Australians, but also understand where they sit around and how they feel about defense. And obviously, the world has changed quite dramatically in the last 12 months. And I think Australia is shifting in its perceptions of what we do need to do and where we need to invest. But it's still a market that is not a super patriotic, super pro defense market. So it's actually probably helpful that I'm not necessarily from that background because I can kind of see how we might tell a narrative that resonates, as someone who cares about my country and cares about where we are, but not necessarily was deeply engaged or served in any way. But I think the appetite for failure, I think, is really interesting. I think when you're in a fast growth company as well, a lot of concepts we talk about in terms of our development is like just get in and test and test these things, evergreen, keep going, all of that stuff. I think is really interesting. But I think Australia in general, we don't do enough of talking about failure. We're not very good at it. I think we have a culture of like, not necessarily being as vulnerable and sharing failures. So I think when leaders do that, it really resonates, but I don't think culturally we're very good at it.
do you think that stems from tall poppy?
I think
Of
so.
what? Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I
Do you know
think
the
so.
tall poppy syndrome, Christine? Okay.
No.
Also, Davisi, why don't you explain that so that I don't mess it up, given that you're the Aussie?
Uh, it's hard to explain. It's just we don't like people to get too what we believe is too far above their station. Like don't get too kind of, we like to cut people down if we feel like they're getting too big for their britches. And like I think a good example at the moment is like the Atlassian founders, have been on this kind of journey of kind of being the darlings of Australia, grew this incredible brand, successful growth story, unicorn, all these things. They are going through a really tough time at the moment, and the media is really on them at the moment. And I would say that's a good example of tall poppy. Now, to some extent, the media is there to hold people accountable, and I think to some extent they're trying to do that with them. But there's been some articles where I'm like, this is just tearing someone down. Like this is
Yeah.
not, and that's kind of tall poppy is like, okay, you're a billionaire now. We don't, instead of kind of being like, this is still an amazing story. And these are amazing Australian leaders who have gotten a
Mhm.
company to, it's just interesting. And so that we have this general sense that like, we don't want you to get too big for your britches. Don't get too,
Mhm.
and so I think to talk about failure is quite hard, I think, in Australia because we don't like to be that vulnerable as
Mhm.
leaders. It's getting better, but I think, but yeah, tall poppy is a real thing here. Yeah, it's an interesting cultural landscape for leaders.
The other week, Katie, do you know Pub Choir? This Brisbane woman named Astrid
No.
who
Mm-mm.
she can in like less than an hour, actually less than like the time it takes to do America's Got Talent or whatever that show is. She can teach an audience to sing on and three different levels, like medium, high, like low, like voices,
Uh-huh.
like in harmony. And I was on that cruise ship a couple of
Oh
weeks
yeah,
ago,
we need to talk about
and
this, by the way.
she had this like spirited Australian woman, this incredible singer, somehow managed to get 1,500 strangers in a room, all singing the Queen song "Don't Stop Me Now" in harmony. It was the most incredible thing. Yeah, I don't know. It
I
was
love
very
that.
like it was so inspirational, and whether you were a tall poppy or a whisperer, like everyone's voice like counted and contributed to, I keep doing this, like creating this incredibly harmonious and just really moving 3 minute like sing along. It was, yeah, it was incredible.
Why don't you tell us about this cruise ship?
Yeah,
Because
I want to
I
hear
saw
all
it
about this.
all over social media, all over LinkedIn. I was talking to Alex Conrad about it. I was like, everybody tell me about this cruise ship. It looked amazing. Tell everyone that maybe didn't know like what its purpose was and what you're doing, kind of what it was all about.
Yeah, why was I on a cruise ship? So there are two things about it. The first thing is, I mean, as many people know about the Virgin brand, Virgin is all about creating experiences and disrupting entrenched industries. And so something that Richard has always been really excited about is building a cruise experience for people who don't cruise. And that's probably, do you guys cruise? Have you been
Nope,
on
No, I've
cruises?
never
nope,
cruised.
never
Never.
Yeah.
cruised.
Yeah,
Mm-mm.
I hadn't either, and neither had Richard. And this experience is just incredible. It's so beautifully designed. It's got so many like optionality in terms of fitness and entertainment. You can be alone if you want on this beautiful mid-sized luxury ship. Um, and at the same time, and given, Katie, back to your point about like when you work alongside really great people, these relationships last for a long time, and I stay really close, and I'm still very deeply connected with the Virgin alum. And at the same time, as you all know, I care very deeply about building community. And I think part of that is COVID. I do worry that we don't really ask reporters how they're doing. Like they never got a break, right? Between COVID and politics and all the global crises everywhere, like they're constantly at the front line reporting on all these changes. Plus, they've had to deal with not only being reporters, but also personal brands and bringing engagement and audiences into this, very beleaguered business model that the media is in. The media are under tremendous pressure to roll out AI into the newsroom, and then you have
Yeah.
these early stage founders that are building the next tech stack, and it's great to have so many people like thinking about the same things, but then being in a place where we can actually think out loud about these things and find like commonality and connection and all the great things that happen when you bring smart people into a room. I like the room to be interesting. Like it's not just about the container of curating really great people and ideas, but it's nice to have surprise and delight in the room too.
Yeah.
They were blown away, like absolutely blown away by the Virgin hospitality. And in the end, like the greatest, the measure of impact is when someone says, I want to go on a cruise. I want to do a founder accelerator on a cruise ship. Like that's the ultimate measure. Or that they've just connected with people that they never thought that they would get to interact with. It just happened to be on a cruise ship, which means it's just like an extra memorable talking point. So yeah, it was really fun. I also like to do events where the audience is just as impressive as the people on stage. So
Yeah.
we had a really great group of people who got to speak about current things that are shaping today's like like cultural zeitgeist and like the narratives that we care about. But at the same time, the people in the audience are media founders, they are personalities, and I like that they come not expecting to have to say something meaningful, but they're listening and observing and learning too. Like everybody wants to understand what's going on in this moment, and
Yeah.
so we're enabling them to have that opportunity. And that's what M13 stands for. M13 is we're named after the brightest constellation in the Western Hemisphere, and this idea that like we're all stars out there. Some of us shine brighter than others, but when we're all together, we shine brighter together. And
Hmm.
that's kind of like the ethos behind the events that we curate.
One thing
I
that
don't know.
you
Is
talk
that
about that I that I really love, and the way that you think about community, which I find the more that I just find it so unique, is that you think about building community as like giving rather than pairing. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like you give an experience or you offer something to the people that are coming. Like, I feel like that's such a unique way of looking at bringing people together rather than saying, at M13, we want to have a founders dinner because we need to find more prospective founders. And this is what our audience is and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no, no, let's give them something. Let's make it worth their while rather than like you sell to me. Like I just think that that's so powerful and it can transcend kind of how we think about relationships across all areas. Like even thinking about a journalist, rather than being like, "Hey, do you want to talk to my executive?" It's like, "Hey, I've got something for you that only you are gonna love. It's this thing." Like, and no need for coverage, but here's this thing, or no expectation. I think that that's something that's gotten lost. I don't know if it's the pandemic or if it's maybe something I'm just realizing and it's been there all along. But like, there's some
I don't
magic in that.
I think well, first of all, thank you for seeing me. I really appreciate that you've made that observation. I think you're doing it too with this podcast. I think we're in a profession that is often invisible. They it just happens, right? It's magic. Like earned media, a brand reputation. Like, how does it happen? It happens through all of our collective experiences and the trust that people we have earned. And so reporters, influencers, independent news creators, they trust us. And so do our spokespeople. So do the people that we put in front of them. We know, they trust us to know that we are not going to set them up for
Yeah.
embarrassment or failure or a setback. I also think that nowadays, attention, our attention economy is so broken and it's been so abused. We have abused it and it's abused us. And we're in this new moment, I think, where presence is mattering more than ever. And so I love that Virgin Voyages has created this experience that just enables people to play and discover, be by themselves or meet strangers and know that everything has been curated for them. And I think going back to presence and how this impacts relationships, when you ask people to come to something, it's a lot. Presence takes tremendous commitment. I mean, it's a
Yeah.
big investment to show up to something. And so if you're going to invite people to do that, you better make sure that they walk out of there having learned something surprising about themselves or met interesting people to the left and right of them, not just in front of them, and that they're not only being talked at, but they're actually getting to
Yeah.
share and exchange, especially when we're experiencing so much screen fatigue and we are now actively seeking the art of being human again, the art of listening and the art of being there and showing up for each other. So I think that's a key part of strategic brand building, narrative building, and reputation making too.
Would you say that, or do you believe that maybe community kind of ownership is the future of like brand communications? Like, do you think that there's an opportunity there for people to grow into that?
Yeah, I very much think so. I think about the people who graduated on Zoom and didn't get to complete school in
Could you
person.
imagine? Like,
No, no.
especially the
We,
experience in America in terms of like college. I just, or even high school going into college. Like, it's just crazy to me.
yeah, yeah. Practicing being someone and then realizing, oh, that's actually not me. I want to try being someone else. Like you need people around you to give you feedback. And I
Yeah.
think a Black Mirror does not give you feedback that we all need, especially when you're growing up. And so I do think that people crave being around each other, having that kind of feedback and having that the good friction come back. I
Mhm.
think that happens through community. And it also, again, it builds stakeholders. It builds investors who are going to get even more excited about you when they've met you in person and seen that their trust has been validated because you've said something or you've been kind to someone or you've done something that's shown that that this investment was worthwhile, or being around talent and knowing, oh, this I definitely want this person to come join me. I'm going to work harder to recruit this person. Like
Mhm.
it's all part of being human. I mean, it feels so basic to say this, but soft skills are really hard skills, and it feels really radical to
Yeah.
even say that. And so I think we need to, I think it's up to us comms people to put language around it and to put metrics around it and to talk about it more openly as an area that we all need to lean deeper into.
Yeah, and I think we talked about this a little bit the other week, but in terms of the next generation coming up, that it's actually those skills that are going to be super valuable. It's like who has those connecting skills, those relationship
Mhm.
skills, who can build trust really well with people. Because I think some of the other things that we used to look for in that graduating class from a skill set perspective, AI is taking some of that away, but we need to replace it with these skills. And I think we're not doing enough to like nurture those skill sets and to kind of think about if I'm a generational kid who went through COVID and I'm also on my device all the time, how have I learned those skills, or have I learned those skills, and have I missed a trick in, we all remember going to our first workplace and having to like be an adult kind of thing, and like learning how to interact. And you come out of university or whatever, and you go into a workplace, and that's a really important learning environment, just how to be in a workplace as a human and how to navigate that. And I just worry sometimes about that kind of next generation. Where are they
Yeah.
learning that? And all of it is with a screen in between, which I think is a
Yeah.
bit of a worry.
I agree with you. And I also think a good place for young people to get started. I mean, I'm a big fan of startups. Like I'm a big believer in
Yeah.
small is beautiful because
Yeah.
you get to when you see a problem, you get to go and try. Like you get to
Yeah.
try to apply your skills or you get to learn to figure it out. Um, it's harder to do when you're in a really large organization. There are obviously skill sets and processes and systems that you develop, but in a small environment where all hands on deck is essential, it means something. You get to
Yeah.
try many different things, and that work experience can take you in so many different directions. Again, I didn't know what I was doing in my nonprofit social entrepreneurship environment, but I got to try a lot of different things, and I knew what I didn't want to do, and I knew what I was sort of good at that I just wanted to keep applying and keep doing
Yeah.
over again. So, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good reminder to people that, taking that job where it's kind of maybe not exactly what you imagined, but being able to wear the multiple hats and kind of test out things is such a fun, good place to be. And it might not feel like that coming out of college, and you've got your kind of
Mhm.
eye set on something. But yeah, I think all of us have had that experience where you kind of are in that role where you're like, okay, I guess I'm doing that today. I guess that's my job today. And it's kind of like, okay, I'll figure it out as I go, and I love that.
It's like not worrying about the title, to
Yeah.
Katie, your
It's back to
it's
your
like
point. Yeah. It's like, forget
it's not
about that.
about the
Yeah.
yeah. One of the way I got into Virgin is because Dan Porter, who started Overtime, which is an incredible sports media company, he was at Virgin at the time, and we had met at Teach for America, and he had seen me in action at Teach for America, and he said when we were at Virgin, he was at Virgin, and they were at the very beginning of launching the North American portfolio, and he said, we've raised a bunch of money to bring the Virgin brand to North America. We're going to start with the music heritage, and I need someone to launch a music festival, and I think you should do it. And I said, I don't know anything about, I listen to jazz. I don't know anything about music. I can't launch a music festival. And he said, it doesn't matter. You can execute on anything. I've seen you do it, and you're not going to get egg on my face. So it's back to, if you can work with people and prove your worth and be a reliable and consistent person and show up for others, that's going to take you in so many different directions. That led me to Dan opening the door to Virgin, and I never looked back. I got to, it was a consulting gig, which turned into, they made a full-time role for me that hadn't existed before. And that sent me on a 13-year journey with Richard Branson and the Virgin Group.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I couldn't agree more. And I think the startup world is so overlooked because people are looking for that like big cash kind of scenario. But my experience with startups, like I talk about Salesforce a lot, but really before that, I was at a company called Jawbone, and Hossein Rahman, the CEO and co-founder, opened up 1 million doors for me. Like really, like really introduced me to a lot of people that I would have never met otherwise, who I still stay in contact with today. He was so willing to bet on me because we were working on a small team and we were in it together and we were having success together. And so that trust was there as well.
Yeah. Isn't it amazing the connections we all make along the way?
I love it.
Like, humans are magic, but when you connect the dots, it's just, yeah, it's incredible. It's a miracle. It truly is.
Yep. No, it truly is. And I think that's why community, particularly in our profession, is so important to foster, because we can get so stuck behind the curtain versus, because that's who we really are. Like, and that's why we have to ask people to come on the podcast, because they're not used to being in front of the camera. But really, if we can foster a community that shares these experiences and people are like, oh my God, I had something similar, or that's really interesting, I want to learn more about that. Or how can I pivot my career and do this same kind of thing? Like, I feel like PR has secret communities, and then it's starting to now have more outwardly spoken communities because we're just not used to being in front of the camera at all.
I think you are doing a great job of elevating our voices and elevating our craft. The more other people know, the more our spokespeople and the people we work with know what we do and how we do it and why it's so important. I think it elevates all of it allows us all to do so much better for
I
our
just think
business.
we're creative people too. So I think the more that we are able to build relationships and kind of work our creative magic and earn that trust from people that are allowing us to do it, like our founders or our executive teams or anything like that, like the more we get to move away from chasing audience metrics, and it's more about the communities that we're fostering, and then they see the relationships of that down the road.
Yeah, exactly.
I think
Exactly.
traditionally we've not been good at it because a lot of our job is doing it for other people, right? It's
Mm.
like building relationships between our stakeholders, between journalists. Like it's that's sort of what we've been doing naturally. And then we've sort of forgotten to do it for ourselves a little bit. And I think naturally you can't have a high ego in this role because you're behind these
It's
people
true.
and you're helping them, and then they're the ones fronting the TV show or whatever it might be. And so you have to be, to some extent, not necessarily chasing kind of telling your story, because that's not the role that we've had to do. And I think that's the flip that we have to make, is like two things can be true at once. Like we can still be that executive trusted behind the curtain person, but we also need to elevate ourselves and say that this is a profession that is very important. It is at the seat of many leadership tables. Here's what we do, here's how we do it, and be vulnerable enough to kind of talk about it. But yeah,
Mm.
I think like we just haven't done it very well as a
Yeah.
profession, in
Yeah.
the past.
It serves us to get out there more for sure.
Yeah.
I used to describe I used to describe that I used to describe what I do with Richard before events and before speaking opportunities and earned media as I would go ahead of him to a dark theater, go on stage and remove the furniture that I knew he would stumble on, and put the lights in the places where I knew he would like to walk, the stories he would want to tell, the shape of the narrative that is authentic to him. And that was what I did. But that
Mm.
meant I was always in the dark, right? I was always invisible, to your point, behind the curtain.
Mm.
And during COVID, Virgin Voyages was doing this wellness cruise, and I offered to curate it with women entrepreneurs and leaders and influencers to come and fill the stage. And these, I purposefully chose women who are generally behind the stage, off camera,
Mm.
producing, making decisions, but you don't see them. They're the invisible hands behind everything. And they were elated to get the chance to be on stage and to be able to tell their stories and to share their learnings. And when you start to build your own narrative like that, you not only get better at the craft, but it ends up just informing so many more people. And then you have all these superstars who were under recognized, who are now doing incredible things. Like a few of them said that it changed their life to be seen differently and to come
Mm.
out of the darkness and into the spotlight. And now they're like leading their own executive leadership programs, and they're running businesses. Yeah, it's pretty remarkable what happens when someone sees you for what you're able
Yeah.
to do.
And I'm going to pivot a little bit back into like the shifting kind of media landscape as well, because I think that's a big part of the relationships that we deal with day to day that are really changing too. How should you, or what advice do you have for people in the comms profession that are looking to kind of build relationships with the Substack writers of the world, the shifting
Mm.
media of the world, like going into podcasting, like what is your advice for people that are looking to kind of shift their relationships or start new ones in those new spaces?
I think first of all, it's you have to have fun. You have to be curious and start to listen to the podcasts, like read the Substacks, start subscribing, like get involved and pay attention, because there are a lot of journalists in mainstream media who are newsletter curious, who want to be doing other things, who are feeling a little, I mean, my sense is that they're pretty burnt out, and they are seeing this new crop of independent news creators that are trying. I don't know how long it's going to last, right? First of all, I can't subscribe to as many newsletters as I can. It can't hold. So we're in a very, very shifting, interesting new media landscape. And that's why we've been doing events every 6 months, because it seems like there's something new happening. And it's dynamic, it's exciting, but the people are still there, whether they're in a legacy media outlet or trying something different or going in-house somewhere. You know that they are really effective content producers, storytellers. They understand narrative. They know how to draw out stories and interesting
Mm.
tensions that need to be resolved through a narrative. So they're there. They're just trying out there. They're learning and growing just like all of us are. And so nothing is fixed. I think that's one of the key takeaways, and it's always to be curious and to get out there, go out and meet people and interact with them. They're human too. Like so many journalists have said, the first time you reach out to me should not be when you're pitching me something. It
Yeah.
should be have a conversation with me. Tell me you
Yeah.
read something and I missed something, or tell me that you read something and corroborate something, a point that I made. That
Mm.
DM me. Like that's when the engagement really starts. That's when the trust building happens. They're people too. So I think that would be the advice, is just get started.
Yeah. And do you see the founders that you're working with, like have their expectations shifted towards what media get looks like now, or what's that looking like from your perspective?
Yeah, I think that they understand that there are platforms like LinkedIn that have been very helpful for them to reach
Yeah.
multiple target audiences and stakeholders. I like that they are even starting to move away from the word user, which is a word I can't stand. And they're starting to talk about community members, audiences, guests, that kind of thing.
Mm.
And I think that happens again as they deepen their engagement on social media and real people are engaging and commenting. It means something. They're seeing that it has an impact. They also are coming to me not only um, they're not coming to me solo, but they're bringing other teammates. And I think
Yeah.
that's really important because they can't do it alone. I don't expect them to be the person doing their social media and being their spokesperson, working on earned media. I like it when they bring in other members of it's not like this dark art, right? It's not
Yeah.
only for executive profile building, it's for the entire company. It's for building and shaping their brand. And so it means a lot that more and more they're bringing additional people into into our first and many conversations.
I guess just thinking about that in mind too. So, how should comms people be thinking about their strategy, knowing that that's kind of where the mindset is with founders, and that's kind of the shift that's happening with media, and we're looking at communities as audience builders. Like, what does this look like now for the future of what comm strategies look like?
The one of the things that I've been talking with a number of people about is that our audiences are not only humans, but they're also machines. So LLM
Mm,
optimization is something that I'm really curious about,
love
whatever you
that.
want to call it, geo optimization, whatever it
Mm,
is. I'm really curious about that. It's definitely shaping the way we write our content, like write our headers and all that stuff. And
yeah.
I do wonder, like, what will future websites look like? How will we make sure that the websites are interesting and warm and
Mm,
approachable for humans, but also are able to get the attention of LLMs? So I think this goes back to the landscape is constantly changing. It's changing
mhm,
faster than ever. Information is more accessible than ever. Data is more accessible than ever. So there's a bit of curiosity to be applied across um, all parts of communications, but also curation. I think it's going to be
mm,
really important
Yeah.
for us to be even more discerning about what matters to us and not just say we have to ingest all of it or it's like spray and pray just doesn't work. And it also doesn't need to be a strategy. So being very specific about who you are curating your content to, who is the
mm.
audience that you're trying to cultivate and to win those hearts and minds, like that actually becomes, to me, that feels way more meaningful than going out there and barfing at a bunch of AI slop to people you don't know. May not even exist, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Barfing at a bunch of AI slop. I want to make that into a song.
That should be our new jingle, voice it.
I'm gonna just do
Hmm.
that moving forward. Cut the 5, 6, 7, 8 out.
Yeah.
Um, Christine, I love this conversation so much. I think the value of community cannot be emphasized enough, especially in kind of everything we've just with everything we've talked about, but just also what the future potentially holds for our professions, for what we're working towards as society. I'm just so grateful, and we both are, that you've come and joined us on Smart and Public and kind of shared your perspectives and your insights. But we're always curious, how were you dumb in private, Christine?
First of all, I'm so honored that you included me. You have such an awesome group of folks that you've put on the podcast, and I listen to every single episode. I Everyone has good dumb in public, dumb in private. Is it everyone has good dumb in
Either
private
mine or both, really.
examples? Yeah, here's an example of me being dumb. Um, I am especially bad with keys. I can't seem to, I don't know how to work keys. I can hardly open my front door. I stay in a lot of hotel rooms. I don't know how to, I always struggle with unlocking a hotel room. I don't know how to explain that. I am grateful for the swipe, the
The
keys,
invention
but
of the swipe key.
Uh-huh.
yeah, I'm very grateful for that. But truly, keys are not my friend. I like everything to be I don't know, maybe it just means I need
Open.
as many open doors as
Yeah.
possible.
I
Yeah.
feel like
There's
that's
a subtle philosophical message in there, Christine.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. Just like everything with Christine, I feel like there's a philosophical undertone to everything.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes,
wow.
that's right.
You give me a lot more credit than I deserved.
Hardly. We're so grateful to have you. And for anyone out there that is interested in nominating a guest or sending in an idea or a topic our way, you can email us at hello@smartandpublicpod.com, or you can find us on YouTube and TikTok and Instagram at Smart and Public Pod. But Christine, thank you so much again for joining us. And We'll
Thank
talk
you
to you guys
both.
next week. Consider
Thanks
this
for
intermission
coming.
over.
Thank you both.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.